11 years ago this year, my husband and I were planning our wedding in Nashville, Tennessee. We were living down there, students at Vanderbilt, and we had decided on our chapel. We wanted to get married at the chapel on Vanderbilt's campus, and so we looked around Nashville to see what some great reception venues could be for us. And Nashville has this funny little thing very close to Vanderbilt's campus. It is an exact replica of the Parthenon. um, in a park near Vanderbilt. And my husband and I used to go and sit out on the lawn. It's a really beautiful area, and it is a gigantic monument in the middle of Nashville. So we decided that that could be a neat place to have our wedding reception. So I set up a visit with their event planner, and we had never gone into the Parthenon before. So we met with this event planner, and for the first time, we're walking into this building, and I was startled to find out that they have a 42-foot replica of the goddess Athena right in the middle of the Parthenon. I asked, actually, I said, what do people do for their weddings? And she said, they just kind of set up their tables. They really do just use the space. And I thought, I don't really want that to be the centerpiece of my wedding reception. So we politely exited and chose somewhere else. It's a startling thing to come across these kinds of large idols in our culture. This isn't something that's very common, but today we are in the second of the 10 Commandments, and we're going to be talking about what to do actually with carved and graven images, because this is the command that we're studying today. The whole reason that we are in this 10 Commandments sermon series is because often we can get into the mentality with our faith that God requires things of us in order for us to earn our faith or earn his care and compassion. But actually, things like the 10 Commandments, which seem so clearly like they could just be a checklist for our faith, every single one of them was given to us as a way of responding to God's grace and his love for us, which exists regardless of our faithfulness back to him. The 10 Commandments are a way for us to actually say, God, we're on your team. We're identifying ourselves with who God is by following through on practicing these. And because this whole carved and graven images thing isn't very common in our culture today, we're going to need to dig pretty deep into the text to hear how this really impacts and shapes our faith today. So we are going to be in Exodus chapter 20 today, starting in verse 4. This is on page 105 in your pew Bibles. It says, "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them." If you are reading this in a physical Bible, feel free to circle that word image. That is at the heart of what we are dealing with today. An image in Hebrew is a pesel. This is a different word than the image of God that you and I are made in Genesis. A pesel is a carved or engraved image that is used to worship other gods. It's a very specific thing we're talking about. It is the 42-foot statue of Athena. It is a physical replica of a god that we're talking about. That God says, do not make these and do not bow down to worship them. I actually had a meeting with one of our members a few years ago where they asked if it's a problem that we have things like these crosses in our sanctuaries. Is this a pestle? Is this in any way a carved image? It's not. If we treated the cross like a way of calling God into it so that God could then respond to us from the cross, that would be a problem. Crosses in our sanctuary, or if we wear crosses, they are in order to remind us of the sacrifice of Jesus, of the love that God poured out for us. We are not turning to the cross to call upon God to enter into it and then provide for us. Does that distinction make sense? So in the ancient world, what the big problem that God is concerned about is people making images of gods, asking those gods to come into them. and then worshiping those things. That is the big challenge here. And since we don't have many of those around in our culture, the question can become like, how does this actually really impact us? But if you think about what they were doing, those pestles, those idols, were used as the voices for other gods to speak to God's people. Today, we're going to focus in on whether there are perhaps places in our lives where we are allowing other voices to come in and speak to us in greater ways or in different ways than the very voice of God. In order for us to dive into this and really see how this plays out, I want us to actually jump just a few chapters ahead in Exodus. At this point, so God gives the 10 Commandments to Moses in Exodus chapter 20. God then spends like 7 chapters of scripture telling Moses how to build a sanctuary. This sanctuary would actually be on poles so that the Israelites could carry God with them on their wilderness journey through the desert. And the whole purpose of this was for God to be able to draw near to his people. In Exodus 25, verse 8, God says to Moses, "Have the people of Israel build me a holy sanctuary so that I can live among them." That's what God wanted. God wanted to live among his people. And there's a part of this sanctuary that is especially powerful as we think about what God wanted to do with and for his people. Starting in Exodus 25, starting in verse 17. We read, "You shall make a mercy seat of pure gold, and you shall make 2 cherubim of gold. The cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings, their faces to one another. And you should put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you should put the testimony, the 10 Commandments that I'm going to give you. And there I will meet with you. From above the mercy seat, from between these 2 cherubim that are on the ark, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel." I have an image of what this mercy seat looks like. A general replica looks something like this. Okay, God put this on poles so that the people of God could pick it up and walk with God on their wilderness journey. And you see that space between the wings? Normally, in the ancient world, that's where the pestle would go. They would put an image, they would put the Athena right there so that they could look at God. But what God says is, don't put anything there. I am the God of all time and the God of all space. I'm the God of every molecule of the air, and no carved image could possibly encapsulate my goodness and my sovereignty. So give me space, and I will come, and I will dwell among you, and I will give you mercy, and I will give you righteousness from that very place. This is God drawing near. He's drawing near to his people. Here's what happens, though. While God is giving them this beautiful proclamation of what he intends to do with his people, the people who are waiting for Moses get impatient, they get frustrated, and they get doubtful about whether God is actually going to intervene for them. And so in Exodus chapter 32, literally the commandments for building this beautiful sanctuary just end. And the next verse, in Exodus 32, starting in verse 1, we read, "When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, 'Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him.' And Aaron said to them, 'Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me.' So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. And then they said, 'These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt.' These are your gods. This pestle, these are the gods who brought you out of Egypt." What they've done here is they have fashioned a singular golden calf to be a seat, not a mercy seat, but to be a seat for a variety of Egyptian gods to come and speak to them. The best way that I can put this, it would be like if I fell off of a pier into the ocean and I was drowning and I needed to be rescued, and someone came and they pulled me out of the ocean and miraculously, heroically saved me from those waves. And then when I got back on the pier, I turned to the people who pushed me in and I thanked them for what they did. That's what's happening here. The people of God have been saved from Egypt in a miraculous, incredible way. And as they're waiting, I understand they may be feeling impatient. They may be really unsure as to why Moses is taking so long on that mountain. But God has a divine plan to intervene in a powerful way for them so that he can go with them through the wilderness. And in the midst of their not understanding, not seeing, they feel the need to find something that they can see, to call upon gods who did not serve them before and who would not serve them now, and instead worship them. The Bible tells us not to make images and bow down to worship them, because those images functioned as seats for the voices of other gods to direct and to guide the people. And here's the thing. As we think about the Israelites who are standing there waiting on Moses, and they're in the midst of their impatience, sometimes I can get into the mentality that this is just something that they dealt with long ago, that that impatience and that uncertainty in God was just a them thing, was just a them problem. But we actually have the mercy seat of God available to us every single day. And there are still other voices that swirl. In Romans chapter 3, there's this beautiful moment where Paul writes, he says, through his faithfulness, God displayed Jesus as the mercy seat by means of his blood. He's the mercy seat. He did this to demonstrate that he is righteous in the present time and to treat the one who has faith in Jesus as righteous. This is not just a them thing. This is not just a long ago thing. That mercy seat of God that was going to travel with the Israelites through the wilderness travels with us now, because Jesus himself became that mercy seat that is available to us at all times and in all places and in all circumstances. We can turn to through prayer and through scripture and through formation. We have that. We get it. We get Jesus's righteousness. And yet, it can be really hard for us to pay attention first and foremost to the voice of God. John Mark Comer is a pastor, and he writes that everybody is following somebody, or at least something. He says, put away, we're all disciples. The question isn't, am I a disciple? It's who or what am I a disciple of? For those of us who desire to follow Jesus, here is the reality that we must turn and face. If we're not being intentionally formed by Jesus himself, then it is highly likely that we are being unintentionally formed by someone or something else. Every day we are being formed. Every day we have voices. There are pestles that allow other voices to speak into our lives. And this is not about us combing through our lives and finding points at which to shame ourselves or to really beat ourselves up about how not good we're doing spiritually. But what it's actually about is for us to be able to tune our minds, tune our ears into the voice of God, so that when other voices are speaking to us, we can recognize them and not let them reign. Not let them reign in our lives. And truthfully, most often, these other voices are not necessarily evil, bad voices. Sometimes they are. Sometimes we have places in our lives where we know that that thing is just really bad and it has a hold. But often, more commonly, I think, the voices that become pestles in our lives are good things that have been made into ultimate things. This is how Tim Keller frames it. He says, idols are not usually bad things, but they are good things turned into ultimate things, things that constitute our most fundamental significance and security. And so they function as gods in our lives. And as I was thinking about how to pay attention to these or how to notice when those voices are at work, I came up with just a way for us to recognize them, and it follows the letters IDOL. So hopefully it's a little easy to grab onto and remember. The first thing is if there is something in your life that messes with your identity. Like if there's an area of your life where if you fail at it, maybe it's work, maybe it's something with parenting, maybe it's something with your marriage. If there's an area of your life where if you fail, you don't feel okay, like as a person, like you feel like God somehow made you wrong or there's something fundamentally wrong with you, there may be an idol living somewhere behind that. One of my good things that can be made into an ultimate thing is parenting sometimes. And this came out in a little bit of a ridiculous way. Back in February, my daughters had a Valentine's Day party at their school, and my 7-year-old said that she wanted to be in charge of her Valentine's this year. This was part of her being a big kid. So I told her she needs 23. Here are your cards, here are your envelopes, here are the names to write down. You've got this. I'm not going to double check you. You just run with it. I showed up the next day to the Valentine's Day party, and another mom walks up to me and goes, Lydia only had 16 Valentines. And I was like, oh no, it didn't matter, you guys. It doesn't matter. It's a Valentine's Day party for first graders. But in my mind, the 7 kids who didn't get I actually think her teacher even gave her extras. It didn't matter. I'm still talking about it, and it's September. Those questions, those things, if they hit at a point that make you go, ooh, is there something wrong? It is good to pay attention to them. A good thing in your life may have become an ultimate thing without you really realizing it. The second thing, D, is for doubt. If there's an area of your life where you simply don't think God's sovereign over it, like how could he possibly be involved in this? We've had some conversations with people who deal with things like global markets or national security, or like for their jobs, they deal with big things. Figuring out, how does God play a role in my day-to-day work, and is my work too big for him, is an area of doubt that is worth just looking into. If there's an area of your life where you go, I don't exactly know how God could possibly be contributing here, pay attention to it. With the amount of violence that we've experienced in our city and our country and our world in the last few months even, I think that can be an area where we go, where is God? And how is he active right now? And there are some gut reactions that we can have, even jumping to like clinging to information that can make us feel like we're in more control of this, instead of looking to see where God is and trusting that he is still sovereign over all of these things. If there's something that's producing doubt, look behind it. See if there's perhaps an idol. O is for overwhelm. If there's something in your life that is overwhelming you to the point that it's interfering with your prayer life or your worship life, it's just worth paying attention to. I try to have a prayer time 3 times a day, and I never get through a week where I actually hit all of those. I don't go to bed feeling like a horrible person that night, but I do ask, like, what got in the way? It's worth just to pay attention to. Was there something more going on? And if it becomes a consistent pattern, especially where you're not able to attend worship on Sundays, or you're not able to follow the prayer patterns that you want, just ask why. What is it? What's forming you differently? See what's going on there. And the last thing is longing. I think about the Israelites who were in the midst of this wilderness, and they were longing for the promised land, and that was a good thing that God gave them. That was a good longing. And I think God often gives us really good longings. I know there's a bunch of seniors in high school right now who are applying to colleges right now, and there's a longing for what the future holds and what God's going to do. There are good longings that can be made into ultimate longings. If it feels like if things don't go your way and you don't get the thing that you were wanting or don't achieve the thing that you're aiming for, then you won't be okay. Just pay attention to it. Look at it. Listen to those voices and see if you can just gently redirect yourself to the voice of God, who says that he has called you by name and you are his. There's this passage in Ephesians where it says, I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and how long and how high and how deep is the love of Christ. And I think so often these idle voices just want to shrink it. Like they don't want you to see how big God's love is. They just want to make it narrower and smaller so that it seems like perhaps God's voice isn't as loud. But God continually calls us back to his throne and back to his mercy seat, where he says that my voice can reign. I am the one who provides abundant life. I'm the one who provides living water. I will sustain you. I will refresh you. Those voices messing with your identity and your doubt and creating overwhelm and creating longing, they will forever be frustrating. They will forever tire you out. I will not. I am sitting on the mercy seat and calling you back to me. That's my prayer for us this week, is that we would be able to tune into the voice of God. Pay attention to the places where other voices are, and don't go into a point of shame or of turning off, but instead just gently lead yourself back to the voice of God. I'm going to invite us now to read together our congregational responsive commitment. We're going to read this together every week. It says, God of rescue and redemption, thank you for bringing me out of the captivity of sin through the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus. I confess that my life often does not reflect the new life that you have given me. Help me this week to show that I am set free to live free, obeying your commands out of an overflow of thankfulness for your salvation. I know that some of us may be hearing this and like all four of them may be resonating. Maybe those voices have gotten really loud for you. And if you are at a place where you are wanting Jesus to be the loudest voice for you and you are wanting to pray with someone, me and Emily and John are going to be just worshiping down here in the front row during this closing worship. And we would love for you to just come forward and we will pray with you, whether it's the first time that you're turning your ears to Jesus or you're just in a season where you need to do that again. We want this closing worship time to be one where you can also receive that prayer to come back to Jesus. So let us, if you would stand, we're going to worship together.